13 Golden Age celebrities with the most horrifying secret life. Hollywood has always sold us a dream. The red carpets, the perfect smiles, the glittering gowns that make it seem like fame and fortune are the ultimate fairy tale. But what if behind those sparkling lights lies something much darker? A world built not on glamour, but on secrets, manipulation, and lies that would make even the wildest movie plot seem tame. For decades, studio publicists polished every scandal, rewrote every headline, and buried the truth deep enough that fans would never suspect a thing. The truth is, some of Hollywood's most beloved icons lived lives so disturbing, so contradictory to their public image, that once you hear what really went on, you'll never look at them the same way again. Because while audiences saw wholesome smiles, romantic heroes, and glamorous goddesses, behind closed doors were broken families, addictions, secret affairs, and behavior that would have ended careers in seconds today. And the most chilling part? They got away with it. For years. From the Christmas crooner who ruled his home like a tyrant, to the comedy genius who preyed on teenage girls, to the heartthrob who spent his entire life pretending to be someone he wasn't. These stories reveal a Hollywood where image meant everything, and humanity meant nothing. Oh, and before we start destroying childhood memories, hit subscribe. It's free therapy for when you realize your favorite stars were absolute nightmares in real life. Now let's start with the man whose Christmas voice filled America with joy, while his own home was ruled by fear. Bing Crosby, the Christmas tyrant. Every December, Bing Crosby's velvet voice drifts through living rooms and shopping malls, the sound of Christmas itself. To America, he was warmth, charm, and family. To his own children, he was something else entirely. Gary Crosby, Bing's eldest son, shattered that wholesome image with a memoir describing their father as a cold, violent disciplinarian. The belt was his favorite instrument, not of music, but of punishment. The boys were weighed weekly, beaten for gaining a pound, and trained to address him as Sir. Behind the smiling family in those holiday specials was a household run by fear. One son later said, "Dad wasn't the man America thought he was." But Hollywood didn't want the truth. Studio publicists buried rumors and sold the illusion of the perfect Christmas family. To the public, Bing was kindness itself. To his sons, he was a storm waiting to break. And while his voice promised peace on earth, his home knew none. But if Crosby's cruelty hid behind carols, the next legend hid something far darker behind laughter. Charlie Chaplin, the comic genius with a disturbing obsession. Charlie Chaplin built an empire on innocence, the lovable tramp who stumbled through life with wide eyes and a pure heart. But off-screen, the man behind the hat and cane was far more complex. Chaplin developed a reputation for complicated relationships with much younger partners, many of whom were aspiring performers drawn to his fame and influence. His marriages and affairs often sparked public controversy, especially when details about the age gaps and power imbalance surfaced. One divorce case in the 1920s even revealed private conflicts that shocked fans and left the studio scrambling to contain the fallout. Hollywood's powerful publicity machine stepped in, working to reshape the story and preserve Chaplin's image as a creative genius rather than a controversial figure. Behind the laughter and cinematic brilliance was a man constantly walking the line between public adoration and scandal. Even after the headlines faded, whispers about his private life lingered. The world celebrated his art, but quietly wondered about the man behind the smile. Next, we move from one Hollywood genius to another, one whose emotions on screen couldn't save the heartbreak in his own family. Marlon Brando, the family tragedy he created. Marlon Brando was a force of nature, raw, magnetic, unpredictable. On screen, he embodied rebellion and emotion like no one else. Off-screen, he was chaos personified. Brando fathered at least 11 children with multiple women, but rarely stayed long enough to raise any of them. He drifted in and out of their lives, leaving behind confusion, resentment, and pain. His home was a world without rules. And eventually, that freedom turned to destruction. In 1990, his son Christian shot and killed the boyfriend of Brando's daughter, Cheyenne. A crime born from jealousy, drugs, and dysfunction. Cheyenne, already fragile, spiraled into depression and later took her own life at just 25. Brando, devastated, admitted he'd failed as a father. He said, "Actors don't make good fathers. We're never home." It was a rare moment of honesty from a man who could express any emotion on camera, except love when it truly mattered. And while Brando's performances changed cinema forever, his real-life drama ended in tragedy. Next, we look at another Hollywood darling, whose life was scripted not by choice, but by the studio itself. Judy Garland, Hollywood's manufactured addiction. To the world, Judy Garland was the bright-eyed girl who sang her way over the rainbow. But behind that sweet voice was a child, trapped in a system that saw her not as a person, but as property. At just 13, MGM executives decided Garland needed help to stay thin and energetic for grueling filming schedules. Their solution? Pills. Uppers to wake her up, downers to put her to sleep, a chemical routine that began before she'd even finished school. Executives mocked her weight, calling her the little hunchback, while forcing her onto strict diets and impossible routines. By 16, she was already dependent on drugs. By 18, she was addicted. And the studios didn't care, as long as Dorothy could smile on cue. Doctors were paid to keep her working, not healthy. That control followed her for life, ending in her fatal overdose at 47. Judy wasn't a victim of addiction. She was a victim of the industry itself. Next, we meet another icon who lived a lie, not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. Rock Hudson, the star forced to live a lie. Rock Hudson was the embodiment of 1950s masculinity, tall, charming, the perfect leading man every woman dreamed of. But the man America idolized was living a carefully constructed illusion. Behind that confident smile was a secret that could have ended everything. Rock Hudson was gay, at a time when being open about it meant career death. His agent and Universal Studios went to extreme lengths to hide it. Staged dates, fake relationships, even a marriage of convenience. Hudson lived under constant fear. One slip, one photograph, one rumor could destroy him. He spent decades pretending to be the man America wanted him to be. Then, in 1985, the truth came out when he was diagnosed with AIDS. The revelation shocked the world and shattered Hollywood's perfect facade. In death, Hudson did what he couldn't in life. He made the world face its hypocrisy. The leading man who lived a lie became the symbol of a truth no one could ignore. Next, we uncover a secret so elaborate it fooled Hollywood for decades, and even the child at the center of it, Loretta Young, the woman who adopted her own daughter. Loretta Young built her career playing virtuous, moral women, graceful, pure, untouchable. Off-screen, she was equally devoted to maintaining that image. But in 1935, she faced a secret that could have destroyed it forever. While filming The Call of the Wild, Loretta had an affair with her co-star, Clark Gable, who was married. When she became pregnant, scandal wasn't just risky. It was career suicide. So she disappeared, gave birth in secret, then adopted her own biological daughter through a Catholic orphanage months later. Even her daughter, Judy, grew up believing she was adopted. To hide the resemblance to Gable, Loretta even arranged for her ears to be surgically altered. The truth only came out decades later, long after Loretta's death. Her secret wasn't born of malice, but of survival. The impossible choice between truth and reputation in an industry built on perfection. And speaking of perfection, the next star's charm was just another mask for something sinister. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler with a sinister streak. On screen, Errol Flynn was the ultimate hero, dashing, fearless, and endlessly charming. Off-screen, the story wasn't nearly as glamorous. Behind the adventure roles and debonair smile, Flynn's life spiraled into excess, fueled by drinking, volatile behavior, and controversy that followed him for years. In the early 1940s, He became the center of a headline-making court case involving serious accusations. Though he was ultimately cleared, the trial exposed a darker side of fame that Hollywood preferred to keep hidden. The studio machine went into overdrive to protect one of its biggest stars, turning the narrative into one of misunderstood celebrity while quietly managing the fallout. But those close to Flynn knew that the man who played heroes on screen was battling his own personal chaos behind the scenes. As his career faded, so did his health. Years of indulgence left him a shadow of the vibrant hero audiences adored. By 50, his charm and vitality were gone, leaving behind a complicated legacy that blurred the line between legend and self-destruction. Next, a different kind of scandal. One that began not with controversy, but with a secret diary. Mary Astor, the diary that exposed her double life. Mary Astor was elegance personified, intelligent, refined, and adored by audiences, but her private diary told a very different story. During a nasty custody battle in 1936, her ex-husband threatened to expose her journal, filled with shockingly explicit accounts of affairs with famous men. When pages leaked, the media erupted. For the 1930s, her openness about sex and desire was unthinkable. The scandal nearly ended her career. But Mary refused to crumble. She finished filming Dodsworth, delivered a stellar performance, and reminded Hollywood that talent mattered more than shame. The court later ordered the diary destroyed, though whispers say copies still exist. Mary never denied what she'd written, but she never apologized either. She'd been punished for being honest about what men did freely. Her story became a symbol of double standards that still echo today. Next, we turn to a man who built his fame on laughter, but ruled his home through fear. Jerry Lewis, the comedian who couldn't love his own kids. To millions, Jerry Lewis was the clown prince of comedy, the man who made America laugh and raised millions for charity. But behind the spotlight, the story was far less heartwarming. His 6 sons from his first marriage have spoken about a father who was distant and demanding, describing him as 2 different people, warm and generous to the public, but cold and controlling at home. They said he insisted on discipline and respect, often prioritizing his fame over family life. Another painful chapter involved a woman who claimed to be Lewis's daughter from a past relationship. Though DNA tests later appeared to support her claim, Lewis never publicly acknowledged her. The contrast between his public image as a champion for children and his complicated private life left many fans conflicted. When he passed away in 2017, his estate reportedly excluded his sons, a final act that underscored years of strained relationships. The man who made the world laugh left behind a family still wrestling with the silence he left behind. Next, we turn to one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking stories, a tragedy that began with a single fan encounter. Jean Tierney, the fan who ruined her life. Jean Tierney was elegance itself, a screen goddess adored by millions. But her story is one of the cruelest twists in Hollywood history. In 1943, while pregnant, she attended a fan event despite a local measles outbreak. Among her admirers was a woman who'd broken quarantine just to meet her. That encounter changed everything. Jean's baby, Daria, was born deaf, blind, and severely disabled. Years later, Tierney met that same fan again, who proudly admitted attending the event while ill. Jean said nothing. She just turned away, shattered. The guilt consumed her. She fell into depression, endured brutal electroshock treatments, and attempted suicide more than once. Her beauty remained, but her light never fully returned. One fan's selfish decision stole her happiness and destroyed a life. Next, we meet a man whose demons weren't hidden. They were unleashed for the world to see. Dennis Hopper, Hollywood's wildest nightmare. Dennis Hopper was a creative genius and a walking explosion. His brilliance gave us Easy Rider and Apocalypse Now, but his self-destruction nearly ended him. By the 1970s, Hopper was consumed by drugs, alcohol, and paranoia. He carried guns on set, accused co-workers of conspiracies, and turned film shoots into chaos. One director said, Working with Dennis was like handling nitroglycerin. On the last movie set, he wandered through Peru high and hallucinating, waving a loaded pistol and calling himself a prophet. Hollywood blacklisted him for nearly a decade. He later admitted he was drinking half a gallon of rum and taking grams of cocaine daily. His 8-day marriage to Michelle Phillips ended with her fleeing in terror. Somehow, Hopper clawed his way back, sober, older, and still brilliant. But even in recovery, people on set whispered one thing. You have no idea what he was like in the 70s. Next, we shift from madness to meanness to a comedian whose cruelty hides behind the punchline. Ben Stiller, Hollywood's secretly hated perfectionist. Ben Stiller's characters are anxious, awkward, and lovable, but off-camera, that charm reportedly disappears fast. Crew members have described him as one of the toughest stars to work with, a perfectionist with a short fuse. Assistants have shared stories of meltdowns over coffee orders and long silences that made sets unbearable. One even nicknamed him the Antichrist on set. Co-stars hint that his intensity doesn't stop at the crew. He scrutinizes performances, rewrites lines, and dominates control. To audiences, he's relatable. To those behind the camera, he's a perfectionist who doesn't forgive mistakes. His films make millions, but his reputation leaves quiet resentment behind. It's proof that success doesn't always mean admiration, especially in Hollywood, where egos run the show. And yet, even Stiller's reputation can't touch the man who's managed to alienate nearly everyone in comedy. Chevy Chase, the most hated man in comedy. Chevy Chase was once comedy royalty, a founding star of Saturday Night Live, the face of Caddyshack, Fletch, and Vacation. But behind that smirk was one of Hollywood's most disliked men. From the beginning, Chase was known for arrogance and cruelty. Writers and castmates on SNL described him as unbearable, even mocking a gay co-star's illness during a sketch pitch. Decades later, his behavior hadn't changed. On the show, Community, he feuded with creator Dan Harmon and clashed with co-stars, reportedly making racist comments to Donald Glover on set. The result? Total isolation. Even SNL's creator, Lorne Michaels, once said, "He made comedy feel dangerous, but not in a good way." Chevy Chase didn't just fall from grace. He crashed, burned, and never looked back. A reminder that sometimes the joke isn't funny when everyone's the punchline. For every perfect smile, every glimmering award, and every Hollywood fairy tale, there's a shadow lurking just out of frame. Behind the glamour, fame has always come with a cost. And these stories prove it's often higher than anyone could imagine. Beneath the spotlight, we've seen homes ruled by fear, careers built on lies, and lives destroyed by the same machine that created them. The public saw idols. The people who knew them saw something else entirely. That's the true magic of Hollywood, not just its ability to entertain, but to hide, to convince the world that monsters were heroes and tragedy was glamour. It's an illusion so powerful that even decades later, we still want to believe in it. But the truth? The truth is far more interesting. Because every secret, every scandal, and every hidden sin reveals what Hollywood really is. Not a dream factory, but a mirror. And what it reflects is us. If you're ready for more stories that Hollywood tried to bury, hit subscribe, not for fame, but for the truth behind it. Because in this town, the credits may roll, but the secrets never end.